Hey guys, good morning and welcome back to our Bible study in the book of Romans, chapter 15 this week. Uh, you know what's amazing? We literally started this Bible study Easter of 2020. Last week was Easter of 2021. We've got 3 messages probably left. I say that. I feel we'll probably finish 15 this week, probably, and we'll probably do 2 weeks on Romans 16. And I know somebody will be tempted to say, Romans 16 is a bunch of names. Oh, there is something awesome in Romans 16, and I can tell you, I'm super excited to get there next week. But let's do this morning. Let's go to Romans 15. Let's get in verse 20, and let's go right to it this morning. And so I have made it my aim to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build on another man's foundation. But as it is written, to whom he was not announced, they shall see, and those who have not heard shall understand. Let's pray for a moment. Father God, be with each and every person as they're watching this, listening to this in their car, wherever it is they're doing. Be with them. Give them a few moments where it's just us, God, where it's just us alone with you. Help us to hear from you this morning. Lord, we love you. Help me to be a teacher this morning. Keep my personal thoughts out of it. Lord, we love you and thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen. So here we are, guys, breaking into it this morning. And so if you remember we've been in literally a series. I never thought I'd say the word I'm in a series. But we've been kind of in a series where we talked about the traits of Paul's heartbeat we described. And then we said, well, this should be the heartbeat of every minister out there, every pastor, every preacher. And then we got a whole lot deeper into that and was like, no, this should be every Christian's heartbeat. We should all share these same things, these same qualities that Paul had. This is what we should all have. And point number 8 was Paul had a plan that we said. And we saw Paul's plan in here. And so I've made it my aim to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named. Paul wanted to be that first guy on the scene to go somewhere where somebody had never heard the gospel before, and he wanted to give them the good news. That was what his dream was, to be that missionary. And so we'll even see here, Paul's got his plan to go to Spain and bring the gospel to Spain. And so you may be looking today like, well, I don't know that I can have that same plan that Paul has. You know, we should all have that, though, as part of our plan to minister to lost people. And you may be looking, I think everybody in this country, Jason, this is kind of like a Christian nation. Yeah, if you're listening right now, I gave a very awkward face when I said the words Christian nation. If there's anything right now, if you've learned anything from going through, especially if you've been through this entire Bible study in Romans with us, you've got to understand that most people have no idea who Jesus really is. If most people understood who Jesus was, you would stop hearing people use the name of Jesus as profanity. You would stop hearing them take the Lord's name in vain. It's very obvious most people have no idea who Jesus is, which means today, me, you, we should all have this same, share a little bit of Paul's plan. You can imagine Paul probably getting up every day and just saying, God, give me someone that's broken today. Your prayer today, my prayer right now should be, God, bring me someone broken today who's never really heard who Jesus really is, and give me an opportunity to share. Matter of fact, I'm going to say one more prayer real quick. God, for each and every Christian, God, who watches this, God, bring us somebody who needs to know who you really are. God, help us to be able, with clarity in mind and the Holy Spirit, to tell them, God, who you really are. Help that be in our heart this day, Lord. Amen. I say that extra prayer because that is it. If you understand, if you know, remember the song, look what the Lord has done. That's where we got in Romans chapter 12. If you understand 11 chapters of Romans, what God has done for you, then by Romans chapter 12, you should be saying, God, I'm ready to live for you. God, I'm ready to serve you. God, what do you want me to do? And so we saw Paul had a plan, and we said that you have to have a plan. And so the very last message we preached was point number 1, when it comes to the plan, And I've got 6 points that have to do with the plan of God in your life, your plan on how you work for God. Basically, you got to have a plan, is what we might end up calling this. It's all part of the plan. That might be good. It's all part of the plan. Number one is God's providence in the plan. And we did a whole message on that. For this, I also have been much hindered from coming to you. And we said that word hindered literally meant like to put a trench. And so Paul wasn't saying like people, remember we talked about, the devil's got in my way. I had such big plans. I was going to do this, but the devil's done. Paul is saying it's God that's really hindered him. God has put a trench, literally a moat like around the castle. Like Paul wanted to go one direction, but God has steered him in another direction. And that's the thing in our lives. We should make the plan, but you should always be aware that God should be the one. We should be praying to be in God's will. Remember, that's the big thing. We should be praying to be in God's will. God, help us find your will and live out your will in our lives. It's not so much, God, this is where I want to go, but God, where do you want to send me right now? And so there's what we saw, and we preached extensively, an entire message on this a week ago. But we saw this in Paul's life, this steering of God. Verse 23, but no longer having a place in these parts. And I love this expression, no longer having a place. Paul's in Corinth when he's writing this letter. Now, you may be thinking, well, is everybody in Corinth? It looks like Paul's ready to leave. It looks like God is about to open the door for Paul to leave. And so we're looking at this at this point. And it's like, so is everybody in Corinth saved? No. But you can tell it feels like Paul is saying, my time here is finished. And that's one of those other things. I know that's the tough part of anything, right? Especially if you're in any type of ministry work. Is like, if you go into church, how do you know when is my work here done? In other words, I've done everything I can do here. God is calling me on to someplace else. And I know that's one of those difficult things, but I think we end up in a point where we just have God show us that it's time to move on. And Paul's saying, I no longer have a place in these parts. Paul can feel that it's time to move on. For some reason, when I was reading this morning, I was thinking about an old song that goes, should I stay or should I go now? Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, I'll just not, I'm going to do that again. But Paul didn't have a place anymore. Paul could tell it was time for him to pick up. It was time for him to leave Corinth. He had laid a foundation for somebody else to come in and help lead after him. Now, obviously, they had problems in Corinth because we see 2 letters written to them later where he's trying to correct a lot of things that went on there. But for Paul, it was coming to an end. And we see Paul says, I have a great desire these many years to come to you. So he's telling the church at Rome. He's never been to Rome, but he's sitting here and he's saying, man, I've heard so much about you guys. I want to come visit. It's funny, like even right now, there's churches that I so want to go visit. Union out in Ball Play. Mark David Smith has told me so much about this church, Union. I cannot wait to get up there to go with him one day, because you just hear about someplace, you hear about this spirit, and it's the same thing. I just got to go fellowship with these guys for a little while. And I think that's the exact same thing we see here with Paul saying, whenever I journey to Spain, I shall come to you, for I hope to see you on my journey and be helped on my way there by you, if first I may enjoy your company for a while. And so we see Paul, he's got this big plan. I'm going to go to Spain, but first, hey guys, at Rome, I just got to come hang out with you because I've heard so much about you. Apparently the church at Rome, you got to think, these are probably got started from people who were actually at Pentecost, who come home and were bringing this gospel message with them, that were there on the day when there were cloven tongues as of fire. And now they've come back, and here you've got this whole church started in Rome, and now you've got Paul saying, I got to come spend some time with y'all. And think about this letter. This is where this letter's been so huge. Remember, He's not corrected them or anything of that nature. All he's done is affirm the truth with these guys, just making sure they know sound doctrine. And it's kind of funny we say that because a lot of people today are like, I'm not in the doctrine, you know. I'm not in the doctrine, man. I just want to love Jesus, okay? And we've seen anything in the book of Romans, it's Paul saying, you better know what you know. Because if you don't understand the truth, it's going to be so easy for you to be swept away. And as we go into Timothy, 1 Timothy is where we're going when we leave here. You know, we're going to see how that threat, we know false teachers and things can come in. And we see that in this country today. We see people eager to come in and sweep people away. And the only defense is to know the truth. And that's what Paul has been doing and wrote them this letter to affirm them, to basically strengthen their foundation is what I should say. I also love, though, one other thing. For I hope to see you on my journey and to be helped on my way there. You can tell Paul understood this heartbeat, again, that the Christian should have. He understood, I'm going to Spain. No one's preached in Spain before, and I'm going to come by Rome, and I already understand you guys are going to help me get there. He had this sensation of the love offering. You know, Paul already, he just knew. He knew what he was coming to there. He knew that these guys were going to provide the support he needed. Remember, we've already talked about in this Bible study, the true Christian's heart is literally what? If you see a need, meet the need. Well, when Paul's coming to town, you know where Paul's going next. Paul's got a mission to see lost people saved. Wait a minute. I feel like maybe we should have a mission to see lost people saved, which means we should be willing to give where it is necessary to see lost people get saved this morning. But I am going to Jerusalem. So now let's look. But now, so Paul wants to go to Spain. That's the plan. But look at what he says now. But now I'm going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints. And so this is where we are going to come back in part 2 of the plan. Your plan, number 1, it's got to be subject to God's providence. And number 2, your plan should include service. Your plan, I know that was also one of my characteristics of the Christian, but it needs to be, let's really show how service is this important. It should also be a part of your plan. Paul had a plan. He literally just used that word minister. Remember we talked about that, I think 2 weeks ago, where we said that is like this public service. He's coming to serve the church at Jerusalem. There is a need in Jerusalem, and I'm coming to take care of that. Oh, my heart wants to get to Rome and then to Spain, but I've got to take care of something first back in Jerusalem. And a lot of people will probably have said, Paul, this is not a good idea for you to go to Jerusalem. For Paul, it didn't matter. Paul knew he had a work to do in Jerusalem. And so now we see Paul saying, I'm going to go to Jerusalem to, I underlined the word minister in my Bible, because that is to serve the saints. Paul's going back to the church in Jerusalem. So now let's kind of look at it. In what way is he serving them? For it pleased those in Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution. I like the word contributions actually at koinonia. Koinonia. For the poor among the saints who are in Jerusalem. So notice this. Point number 3 in this plan, giving should be a part of your plan. Giving should be a part of your plan. That's why when we talked about, what was it a few weeks ago? We talked about taxes, tithing, and giving. You should always be thinking ahead in terms of giving. This was not something, this idea of this gift to the church at Jerusalem, this had been going on for a while. Paul had been reaching out to all these other churches, even at Macedonia and Achaia and other places, talking about in Jerusalem there was a need. And you may be going, I don't understand. What happened? Why is Jerusalem in such a need? Well, one, there was a bit of famine at the time. So we had a problem in this area. And 2, in Jerusalem, you got to remember, there was a different dynamic. Now, if you remember when the church was first formed, we saw this thing where everybody went out and sold everything and they kind of shared in common with each other. And by the way, that is communism, not communism. And I think we talked about that at some point, especially if we do Acts, we got to talk about that. But here's the reality of it. No one ever told everybody to go out and sell everything. If we look, God, I'm not telling you this morning, go sell. Brother, sell everything you own. Here is my PayPal email. Make sure and send me your... No. That was never took place. That was something out of their heart that they did. But you see, there was something happened that you're not considering in Jerusalem, though. Why did the church have problems supporting everybody? Why did all these people need support? It was simple. The Jewish people did not like Christians. Remember how we've been talking about these concepts of racisms and bigotry and all that? Remember, Jewish people in no way... think about it, even to this very day. If you're a Jew or can prove your Jewish heritage, you could go back to Israel today, make Aliyah, and you could become a resident of Israel. You could set up your status there, but not if you're a Christian. Even if I've got Jewish ancestry, if I went there today professing Christ, I could not come back to the country. I could not be a citizen of Israel today. I could not make Aliyah because of that. So we still see the same things that went on then are still true today as well. And so if you're trying to still figure out, so why is everybody so poor? They couldn't get a job. If you came to Christ, you couldn't have a business because you're living in an area that's predominantly Jewish. And because you're Christian, you're saying the Messiah has already come. How could you miss this? The Jewish person is going to say, you're not working for me. I'm not going to support your business. And so we saw this massive poverty in the church there because they were living in an environment that was in no way loving your neighbor was not going to be the priority. The Jewish people were not going to help take care of the Christians. And it's kind of interesting today how we still today, we do show so much support for Israel, and we should. God has a plan for Israel. But we definitely get carried away because there's still the same bigotry from 2,000 years ago. It still exists to this day. And so that's one of those things that's always in the back of my mind, I guess, a little bit. But look at what Paul's plan is. Paul knows there's a need there. And you remember Macedonia? We talked about, when it came to giving, we talked about Macedonia because Paul said what made Macedonia was poor. They were not rich. That's what somebody always say, I don't have anything to spare. I can't give anything. If you remember what was going on at Macedonia, they were giving out of their poverty. Paul talked about them. It was like, these guys don't have nothing to give, and yet they're still giving. Even for Paul, it was like an amazing thing to see what was going on in these churches. These people knew there was a need, and they wanted to meet the need. They knew people were in trouble. And that's one of those beautiful things we see when we see people in trouble. I remember when I first got saved, something was amazing. There was a guy at the church I went to, and it's like literally, I think, the very first Sunday after I was saved was the Tuscaloosa tornadoes happened literally, I guess, the day or 2 days before I was saved. And there's a guy at church. For some reason, he said he just felt God press it on his heart to go get a pallet of water and drive it all the way, to Tuscaloosa. And here's the reality of it. Not a rich guy. God blesses him. God takes care of him. And somewhere in the middle of everything, he saw a need. He literally went to Sam's Club, bought a full pallet of waters, put on the back of his truck, drove to Tuscaloosa, not even knowing where he was going to in Tuscaloosa. And I can remember my first Sunday as a Christian listening to this story thinking, this guy's crazy. I'm just being honest. because I couldn't even as of yet understand. Remember that debt of love we owe? I didn't understand it yet. That guy did. He understood the debt of love, and he had this beautiful love in his heart to say, there's a need. I'm going to go meet the need. I don't care about everything else. I'm just going to go meet a need. And that's what was happening in the churches here. So part of your plan should always be giving. You should always be, again, planning to give, setting money aside, making sure you're ready when the time comes that you're able to take care of a situation that might be. Look at this. Verse number 27. It pleased them indeed, and they are their debtors. Wait a minute. How is the church at Macedonia in debt to the church at Jerusalem? That doesn't make any sense to me. For if the Gentiles have been partakers of their spiritual things, their duty is also to, big word, minister to them in material things. Remember, where did the church start? The church started in Jerusalem, out of Pentecost. This is where all these people, when oppression came and people fled from Jerusalem, they brought this gospel message everywhere. What is it, the old saying? If you experience Acts 1, if you go through Acts 1:8, get ready for Acts 8:1. Because what's going to happen is eventually there's going to be persecution. There's going to be persecution, and that happened in Jerusalem, but that helped to spread the church to all these other areas. So now Paul is saying the same thing I should be saying to you right now and to me. If you understand what God has done in your life, the money should be a secondary issue. If you're, y'all, I got to sit here today. Remember my prayer. God, I wasted 34. However many more you give me, they belong to you. Right now, it seems rather unfair in material things for you to rank those higher than the spiritual things God has done for you. Y'all, I look back and I should have been dead almost 10 years ago. May 1st, 2011. I say it often. I wouldn't have made it another week. I had become such a wreck of a life. I was a danger to myself at that point. I don't think I would have made it a week. God had brought me to a point, and it was my time. I was in my place, and God rescued me out of it. And so for me, when I look back at that darkness I was in, how can I now look at everything God has done for me and not say, God, what can I do? What can I give? In what way can I serve? In what way, God, I'll give out of what I got, God, because it should really be really simple at some point. How could you not want to see others saved? Even today, what happens when there are no church buildings left? And I say church buildings because obviously the church is not the building. But what happens, though, when all the churches have closed their doors? Who's going to be reaching out? And now I also have to ask, are the churches today doing what the churches are supposed to be doing? Do we still have the heartbeat that we've talked about here to see, we say it every week, to see what? Souls saved, lives changed. So Paul's saying these people at Macedonia, Achaia, and all these other cities in between, they understand the debt they owe to Jerusalem. They understand this gospel love, and now they look back and they've got no other response than to say, hey, I'll give whatever I got. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was dead, but now I'm alive. If I can do anything to help out, sign me up. I'm ready to help out. So here their duty to minister to them in material things. But here's the thing. Paul also had another plan. Remember, in Jerusalem, you had a lot of Jewish Christians, Messianic Jews. And so there was also, remember, still that little schism that existed for them, that they didn't all accept these Gentile Christians everywhere. And so Paul also knew, wait till these Messianic Jews, wait till all these hard, if you're not Jewish, you're still not going to heaven. You got to have Christ and keep the law. Paul was sitting there going, wait till I show them how much these Gentiles love them. And I bet we're going to change their heart. So Paul it was a twofer in there. It was the ability for those that were saved to exercise a gift. And then Paul also knew that this would help bring unity to the church itself at this point. Verse 28, therefore, when I have performed this, and I have sealed to them this fruit, I shall go by way of you to Spain. Again, Paul is telling you, hey guys, the plan is I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to bring this money, coming back by you, and I'm on my way to Spain. But now let's look at this. But I know that when I come to you, I shall come to you. I just get blasted by this. In the fullness of the blessing of the gospel of Christ. And I love this when he says in the fullness. When I think about this fullness of the blessings of the gospel of Christ, I think about being full of the Holy Spirit. I think about when you've done everything there's just this feeling when you find yourself in the will of God, where you are actually doing the things God wants you to do. There's this something inside of you you can't describe it. Money can't fill it. We talked about with somebody the other day. There is this hole inside of you. There's nothing that can fill. There's nothing that can make you full. But man, when you are full with these blessings that come for the gospel of Christ, when God has just worked in your life, you're doing everything God has asked you to do. If it's an experience you're looking for, guys, and that's where a lot of people today, they're always looking for the next experience. There's no experience like just doing what the Lord has asked you to do. It's funny, we're all looking for this big next level thing, and it's like, if you're looking for the big thing is just doing what God has asked you to do. And that's what we see here with Paul at this moment. Now I beg you, now this is getting serious. Paul says, I beg you, brethren, through the Lord Jesus Christ and through the love of the Spirit, that you strive together with me in prayers to God for me. The fourth part of your plan has got to be prayers. Prayers have to be a part of your plan. It's such an integral part of everything we do. Yeah, we pray before we start even the YouTube Bible study. You should pray before you start your day. It's interesting. If you notice something big, Paul doesn't beg for money, but Paul begs for prayers. Guys, your money's great, but what I really need for you to do is just to pray for me. Look at what he says, that you strive together. This is a team effort. We should be praying together. You know, it makes a good thought. When I start church service this morning, we need to all pray together this morning. And he says, I need you to pray to God for me, that I may be delivered from those in Judea who do not believe, and that my service for Jerusalem may be acceptable to the saints. You see, Paul understood what we just talked about a second ago. He's bringing this money to Jerusalem, and he still doesn't know if this is going to bring unity to the church. Will it be enough to break someone's heart that has already set a tradition in place? For example, if you're not Jewish, you're not going to heaven. If you're not using the King James Bible, you're not going to heaven. If you're not baptized in our church, you're not going to heaven. If you don't worship the exact way we tell you to worship, you're not going to heaven. If you don't sing the songs we tell you to sing, you're not going to heaven. It's funny, I see as I read this today, the same pressure Paul felt. Paul had this desire for unity in the church, and he was asking them to pray for unity. Because even as good as Paul's heart was, Paul understood it might not be accepted. It's like me and my own ministry, because I am not your typical pastor that you see today. I'm not the typical preacher that you see today by any means or sake of it. I'm I'm just different, and I'm willing to accept that. But I know that I'm not accepted everywhere. What is it we always say? Nobody can hurt you like church. I can tell you guys, I've heard people talk about me because of my past or things else, that it's been, I've heard the most horrible things you could imagine come out of good, God loving church people's mouths. Is probably why one of the things I feel my ministry is most equipped to do is talk to people that have been hurt in the church. Because look at Paul's prayer. Guys, I need you to pray for me on 2 points. One, I need you to pray for me. I need you to pray that when I get to the church, they accept the gift I bring. They don't look at it and say, this is Gentile money. We don't need it, dirty Gentiles. God doesn't love them anyway. Is there still discrimination in the church today? Wait a minute. The Southern Baptist Church is dealing with it right now. The reason why they're dealing with it, because it's been existing since the Civil War and the foundations of the Southern Baptist Church, and no one's ever addressed it. Let's just not talk about it. No, I think there's been some racism in the church. Let's just bury it deep down. Don't talk about it. And now we're dealing with it today. Paul's sitting here praying, man, I hope they pray that the church accepts this. And also pray for those, where does he say, I be delivered from those in Judea who not believe. Paul also understands, and by the way, this is the fifth part of our message today. Number 5, in your plan, make sure you know there will be opposition. If you have a plan, there will be opposition to your plan. He knows that there's going to be lost people who literally try to kill him, who beat him. We could go to Corinthians right now and read if we wanted to. We could go to Corinthians and look, because let's see if I can find this real quick. I'm going to have to, is it Corinthians chapter 11? Where am I looking? Yes. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 24. From the Jew, let's back up one. I speak as a fool. I am more in labors more abundant, in stripes above measures, in prisons more frequently, in deaths often. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I've been in the deep, in journeys often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils of the cities, in perils of the wilderness, in perils of the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness, in toil, in sleeplessness, often, in hunger, and thirst, and fastings, often, in cold, and nakedness. Besides the other things, what comes upon me daily, my deep concern is for the church. I love this. We look at Paul, he tells us everything he faces. Beaten. How many times? What we got here? 3 times beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 5 times beaten with 39 stripes from the whip. Paul knows that there's going to be opposition. It's funny, I look today at people, how quickly they break. They set out on this great service for God, and how quickly they depart from it because they meet a little opposition. Somebody made fun of me on Facebook. Somebody did. I don't think anybody's tied you up and given you 39 stripes with a cat of 9 tails, have they? You've got to plan for, y'all, I'm going to be honest, plan for opposition in your community. Plan for opposition within your family. I remember 10 years ago to when I was saved, I instantly lost friends. I instantly had people that were against me going to church. I literally had somebody call me up and say, forget about church, you need to come get drunk with me. And that was their response. Guys, you just need to be used to it. Or in the words of some of the great prophets of our day, haters gonna hate. There you go. Haters are gonna hate. So Paul says, pray for me. You need to have prayer as a part of your plan, and your plan you need to be ready to accept there's going to be opposition. There's going to be those who don't receive you. Y'all, I'll be honest, if you see a church grow, you're going to see jealousy in every other church in the community. Hey, I'm going to be straightforward with you. When I talk to people about the Lord, I say, I just want you to go to church. You can come to church with us. But for a long time, I didn't have a place where I could say, you need to come to our church. I'd love to have you at our church. I just want you in a church. I want you somewhere serving. I want you somewhere worshiping. I want you somewhere learning. Now, I will say this, if you're in a church where you're not learning, if you're in a church where you're not growing, if you're in a church where people aren't being saved, if you're in a church where people's lives are not being changed, if you're in a church where disciples are not being made, if you're in a church that all the money is being used to pad the wallets of those in the church, get out and run. Especially if you're the man, you're supposed to be the man of your family. You need to take your family somewhere. And I'll go be honest, if you see the church start to grow, you're going to see opposition from other churches in the community as well. And now let's look and let's close this out. That I may come to you with joy in the will of God and be refreshed together with you. Now the God of peace be with you all. Amen. And the sixth part of the plan, it's God's will. You know, we always say, if you pray anything in God's name, He's going to do it. You need to understand that a little bit further. Lord, I would really like those 6 lucky numbers this week for the Georgia Lotto. Your prayer that you need to make is the prayer to be in. You need to be in the will of God. Part of your plan should be you seeking to be in the will of God. Stop praying your prayers for everything that's external to the world and just start saying, God, help me be in your will. Help my life align with your will for my life. We talked about it earlier, that fullness of the gospel, that experience when you are living your life in the will of God. Look at what he says, that I may come to you with joy. Daryl Jones, I got to quote you, which I know it's not you. You got it from other people too, but Daryl said it all the time. Jesus, others, yourself. You'll never know joy till you understand Jesus, others, yourself. And then, as I like to always say, you've got to understand you're the least important part of your story. And that we may be, I put a box around the word refreshed, together with you, because isn't that the way it is? When you are doing everything God has asked you, you wake up at, I'll be honest, I've been up since like 3:40 this morning. You wake up refreshed and alive, literally like, God, I'm ready to go to work for you, Lord. I'm so ready, God. I had a lot of coffee, but I promise my main refreshing this morning, it came from the Lord. You just wake up. I looked outside this morning. It's like, God, you gave us a beautiful day. I got to get out in the yard and I got to preach to that camera right now. Y'all, and I hope that's what when you come to church, that you leave there refreshed as well. That when you leave out there, it's like you got that fresh feeling of the Holy Spirit, and you're ready to go take on the opposition you're going to meet in this world. You're ready to do the will of God. And now Paul closes with a little prayer. It's Paul's prayer for us. Remember, Paul knew when he wrote this. He wasn't just talking to Rome. He knew that one day, God knew that one day I would be talking to a camera in my yard and 30 people would listen to this. Now the God of peace be with you all. Amen. I can't say a better prayer this morning than Paul's. May the God of peace be with you this week. God, if you would, be with each of us. Help us to get our plan, God, aligned with you, God. God, give us an opportunity this morning to find somebody that's broken and minister. Give us somebody broken this week and give us an opportunity, God, to tell them the good news that Jesus saves. God, we thank you for everything you've done. We thank you for the lives you've touched. God, I thank you for the lives that have been so influential in my life. God, help me to be influential in others. God, help each person who listens to this and professes Christ be a light in this world today. Lord, we love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, guys, I love you. I hope you have a great week. I hope you are refreshed. I hope by the time you hit the doors of church this morning, you go out of there like you've been sitting on a keg of dynamite and you're ready to take on the world. Hey, guys, I love you. Y'all take care. Bye.